Good day, guys. It's your boy Freelancer here. So today I want to talk about one of the most important, influential, and has one of the most extensive catalogs in not just hip hop history, but in music history, and that is for RZA. He is obviously the mastermind behind the Wu and the Wu-Tang Clan, and he's produced pretty much like multiple great albums with them, and produced a vast majority of the best stuff coming from the whole Wu-Tang Clan affiliation. Now, what I want to talk about with him is when I got into him, I believe it was through 36 Chambers, like with most people. For me personally, though, wasn't like loving first listen, and a lot of it is because of what makes it genius, right? Like the incorporation of like punches and kicks and the drums and the snare drums, especially on songs like Bring the Ruckus, and like how everything sounds discordant and hard and like wants to punch you in the face, like even the pianos on like Method Man or METHOD Man, like even the piano on that sounds like it wants to like beat the crap out of you. Like the whole album is just so tough and rough and like ready to go and protect your neck. Oh man, that album is so brilliant, and the production is so on point. It's just absolutely fantastic. And one of the things I love about him as well, like it takes ideas, and I mentioned this on my Only Built for Cuban Links review, but he takes like musical ideas like it should on paper make absolutely no sense. Like he'll take like, I don't know, like a soul sample, like the chimes from the Merry, like he'll take two musically completely different ideas from each other, right, and he'll put them together and make it fit in a glove, right? Like on I believe it was a specific song that I mentioned off my last review, or like I take GZA's Fourth Chamber, right? Like how those synths, like the one melody that and the main melody those two ideas mixed together make absolutely no sense, right? On paper, it's like, but these things don't make sense. This is like just some like random like discordant synth sound, and this is some like melody, and he just mashes them together, and it makes it work. It makes it go, oh wait, actually that works. Yeah, sounds really dope. This is brilliant. How the fuck does he do it? And that's the RZA. Like he makes you go, what? How did what? And yeah, so I want to go through his catalog. So I already touched on heavily on 36 Chambers. I'll probably do a more extensive review on that. But yeah, so 36 Chambers, absolutely fantastic. Easy A+ album to me. Tical, I'd say it's more like an A-, but it's still a great album, and it has one of the best like R&B-ish type songs, or songs like an R&B chorus to it, and it's still rough and like, yeah, that's all I need. And I love both versions. The P Diddy version was cool too, but obviously the RZA version was, man, that's that thing right there. And the other one I want to talk about on that album, I mean, there's a bunch like Bring the Pain, Meth versus the Chef. It's a really consistent album. I don't love every single beat of it, but I feel like the vast majority, at least 3/4 of that album to me is brilliant. I'll probably give it like an A- overall. Yeah, so that's a really great album. And then obviously 95 came along. His contributions to hip hop in 1995 is like, it's just insane. He put out two easy classic 10 out of 10 albums, and he even did 36 Chamber to 2, the dirty chambers. Return of the 36 Chambers, the dirty version, right, with the ODB. And obviously I've already gone into a lot of Only Built for Cuban Links, but just a quick rundown if you haven't seen that review. My favorite beats are like Ice Cream, Guillotine Swords, Criminology, Incarcerated Scarfaces. Like there's so many great beats on that thing. I highly recommend checking it out. And it all matches like the methodical like rapping style that Rick One does. Like he's always like thinking things through, like he's trying to commit drug dealing and that, and it all works perfectly. And all the beats match his style perfectly. And then obviously Liquid Swords with great tracks like Cold World, which again has a really great like R&B singing chorus, and it kind of makes it, but still so kind of rough and so kind of like fits within that aesthetic perfectly. And again, the beats match just as more like philosophical and like like more kind of abstract, but not in like a pretentious way, but really like abstract and thoughtful lyrics, and what he's trying to do vocally as well. It really matches him perfectly. My favorite tracks off there, obviously, pretty much the whole project, but Cold World was great. Fourth Chamber, oh my gosh, that's like a top 10 hip hop song. Already gone into like the synths and the discordantness of everything, but still making it work and making it like, yeah, like so makes me want to move, yeah. And on top of that, obviously Shadowboxing, and to me Shadowboxing is one of the more important beats that he's done, because that beat to me is like almost like a precursor to someone like a Kanye West, right? The way the vocals are pitched up, the way it's looped, the way it like other aspects of the beat incorporated with it too. It really is a precursor to what Kanye West and Just Blaze did in the 2000s, in my opinion. And it's very influential, and that sound and that style's been used a bunch of times, especially by Just Blaze and Kanye West. And on top of that, he did Return of the 36 Chambers, the dirty version. And this is a great album. I'm not too sure what I'd give this rating wise. I'd probably have to let it like properly sit on it a little bit more. But obviously, I love the upright bass on Baby Come On, Shimmy Shimmy Ya. I mean, come on, that song's been referenced like a million times by this point. It's absolutely fantastic song, brilliant beat. Yeah, the pianos again, like, it on paper it's like what, but when you hear ODB rapping on it, you're like, oh man, this works perfectly. And you just say like, and it sounds dope on its own, of course, but it's like really like what, really out there. But ODB is really out there, so it works even more, and that's what I love. It perfectly matches him. Raw and Hide, I love the reverse. It sounds like a reverse guitar or a reverse piano on every like couple bars from Raw and Hide. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I love that on that song. And yeah, and I feel like, and it really gives like an inebriated, makes you feel intoxicated almost. It's like, what? This is like, the beat sounds high, you know what I mean? And that's what I love, man. Like, he was so dope in that time frame. And then, and obviously in 97, he came out with Infamous. No, sorry, I'll go over Iron Man first. Iron Man, not Infamous, Wu-Tang Forever. And on Iron Man, I mean, Poisonous Darts, love the horns on that thing. Iron Man with Ghostface, so Poisonous Darts, love the horns on that thing. Winter Wars, love the keys, and like, it just sounds really great. And Iron Man's just a really great album. It's not quite as good as The Good Swords or Only Built for Cuban Links or 36 Chambers, but to me it's like an A, and he's got like 3 A plus albums, an A album, an A minus album, so all these albums are in that A range, and it's all really great. It's got like 50 great beats pretty much between these projects. It's just mental, it's insane. And then obviously with Tang Forever came out. I love obviously the Strings and Triumph. I love Bells of War. I love the Impossible. Again, I love the like the storytelling. Like, it really makes you feel like it. And with Triumph, with Impossible, it really makes you feel the story that Ghostface is saying. And with Triumph, again, I love the strings, and I love the fact that it's like 7 minutes long and it always switches up. And on top of that as well, going back to Winter Wars, and I love how like the drums keep coming in and out. It really adds a fantastic dynamic to that beat as well. So yeah, so he was really fantastic, one of the best producers in hip hop from like 93 to 97, which is one of the best eras for hip hop. Yeah, so RZA had one of the best runs in hip hop from 93 to 97. Now after 97, he wasn't as good as what he was doing beforehand. He definitely kind of fell off quite a lot actually. But he still had the upbeat, and I want to go over a couple with you right now. Obviously, Serial Killers and 420 with Method Man. He had Gravel Pit and Clap off Wu, especially off the W. I think that was off the W. The album came out in 2000, the Wu-Tang Clan group that came out in 2000. And he had obviously Run with Ghostface. And he had some other stuff with Ghostface I'll go over in a second. But to me, though, I will say overall, after 97, he definitely fell off. He still had the odd, thing to keep his credibility afloat, but he never came through, or with one exception, he never really came through with an album or a series of albums like he did in the 90s. But what he did in the 90s is pretty much unheard of. There are very few producers I can really compare him to. Like maybe like Dr. Dre, like DJ Premier, or Timbaland, but like very few, very, very, very few producers I can really compare him to, right? Now, one of the things with why that's the case, like, just reading into him and like really comprehending his what happened with him in the 90s, I feel like one of the things which is kind of ironic was that he said it in an interview that, oh, I learned chords and stuff, which was like, okay, so he learned more like musical, like theory and things like that. But he, instead of implementing into what he was doing with, prior to, let's say, 97, he tried to do like orchestras with them, with like synths and like MIDI synths and stuff like that, especially in albums like Bobby Digital, right? And it's like, I don't know. The problem with it is that if you're gonna use like chord, MIDI and things like that, and you're gonna use synthesizers, right, to create orchestras with them. First of all, that's not really hip hop. Like, that's going into like, like that'd be cool for like if for scoring and stuff like that, which is pretty good, obviously. But it's not a very good thing to do with hip hop, right? Like, hip hop and orchestras, they don't usually mesh that well. Now, there are obviously notable exceptions, like Primo has used great, string sounds, obviously Nas is like, and like AZ's, you know, the not the format, for come up, right? But the thing is, so with those tracks, so like they're like looped and chopped like a hip hop song. They're not like an orchestra. So RZA trying to go into like an orchestra type direction, it, especially with the projects he was using, like he didn't use like live strings. He like did like MIDI strings and stuff like that, which means that it's gonna sound dated. And in my opinion, that's kind of the truth. Like obviously, you know, music's gonna age, but to me, the stuff he did in '98 sounds way more dated than the stuff he was doing in '93, in '94, in '95, '96, and even in '97. Obviously, there was some stuff in '97 wasn't huge, and like wasn't huge in the track I did with Piggy, Long Kiss Goodnight, but I think that's one of the reasons why is because like with Long Kiss Goodnight was like he was incorporating like musical theory that doesn't work really that well with hip hop in my opinion, because hip hop's about cutting the fat, right, trimming the fat, great beats, great grooves, and like looping it and like making it work and making you still feeling the vibe, like you know, like for throughout the whole duration of a song. Whereas with orchestras, it's more like you know a long piece of blah 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 and blah blah blah. It's like you know like a long piece that makes you feel emotions or musicality. Or it's just it comes across as like you know it's just those two things don't really match very well. You know, especially with the way he did it, in my opinion. Other things as well that I want to touch on, like there was a flooding that happened. I think one just before Tical and one after Only Built for Cuban Links, which like I think he lost 300 beats in flooding. And I mean that as well. I mean you just think about like 300 beats lost when he was at his peak. This was crazy. You know, like he could have easily have had like another like two or like 4 or 5 great albums from these beats. You know, and let's say only 1 in 10 of them were great beats. That's like 30 great beats. You know what I mean? Lost, right? And it's just, so that's really kind of devastating, you know, to lose all those beats over a flooding. But so I think those two reasons were the reasons why, because he lost a lot of beats from flooding, and the incorporation of like orchestral type musical theories and stuff like that to create orchestras and hip hop. Those two things don't mesh. They just don't mesh, in my opinion, and that's why I don't really care for a lot of his later stuff. From '98 and onwards, with the exception of Supreme Clientele. I love his production on that. I love Buck 50. I love Child's Play. I love what's the one he did? And there's no beat he did. I think it's The Grain. I love The Grain. Now, there was one beat on it, Stroke of Death, which it's kind of bonkers and crazy. Like it's so weird. Like I don't know if I really like it like that, but I gotta say that beat is just nuts and it's audacious, and it's what I kind of look for with RZA, you know. And so Supreme Clientele, amazing album. Obviously, he wasn't the only producer. So I can't entirely give him credit like I can for Liquid Swords, let's say. But that's a great album, and his hand in really made it sound great. And so as a producer, he's a great rapper as well, but as a producer, yeah, like the dude has so much under his belt, so much under his belt. Yeah, he fell off, but he still was putting out, you know, he still has the odd songs to keep his credibility afloat, like a 420 with Method Man, Serial Killers with Method Man and Redman on the Blackout, and a couple of other beats as well with him. And obviously Run was fantastic. Yeah, so overall, one of the most important producers in hip hop, one of the most impressive producers in hip hop, and one of the most influential producers in hip hop. Highly recommend checking out his catalog. If you haven't already, you should have done by this point, really. So absolutely fantastic. Got nothing but respect for the guy. It's probably got like 60 beats to his name. I love that verses he did with Primo. And like he's a GOAT producer when he's like on par with Primo, and that was just, you know what I mean, or just slightly losing to Primo. Yeah, man. I love the guy, man. Peace.